analysis governance is to basically set up processes, set up mechanisms, and assign people to specific roles within the project, especially for certain activities like decision making, prioritization, so on and so forth. So many decisions will be made during the whole process, and someone has to be there to be able to make these decisions. We should also have a change control process. Now, what is a change control process? Basically, it's a mechanism where you can actually monitor any incoming changes. Because when we are working in an agile environment, it is a fact that changes will come and changes will be welcomed. So there can be many changes that can come at any stage. The QS identifies a new thing needs to be developed or thing needs to be modified to get better efficiency. Maybe the developer will suggest adding this new technology will make the system much faster, or the business themselves comes and says that, yes, we had agreed on these five things, but now we have a different need, so please change these last two items. Can happen, and happens very often. So in such cases, it's extremely important that we have a change control process or a change control mechanism. So how does this mechanism work? Someone comes, anybody can propose a change, as I said. So anyone can come up with an idea saying that, look, we should change this in so and so way. When that proposal is made, there has to be a mechanism to document it immediately. You might not take action immediately on that particular request, but you need to have that request documented. Yeah. So you need to do a thorough analysis, wherein you basically understand the impact of that particular change. Without knowing what impact a change can have on your existing system, you cannot take the decision of whether you implement the change or not. So this analysis is known as impact analysis. Again, there are no specific tools or mechanisms to do this analysis. You usually create Excel sheets, PPTs to capture information. The whole idea behind this analysis is you analyze the functional aspects as well as the technical aspects of implementing a new change and what that change can do to your existing system. That's the whole idea. So it's again not a solo activity. The BA does the functional part for sure, but they also have to closely work with the technical teams, the implementation teams, to understand the technical impact of a particular change. So, for example, if I'm changing something, of course, the functionality will change in a certain way, but behind the scenes, maybe there is a change in design, maybe there is a change in contracts. A lot of technical aspects might also get impacted. Maybe there are integrated systems which work in a certain way, but you make this change, they will now stop working. So that analysis has to be done by the technical team, and the functional impact analysis is done by the BA. And the report is presented together in those prioritization calls or sessions where these decisions have to be taken. And if everything seems to be in order, the business, someone from the business is usually the one who has the authority to approve or reject changes. They then will take, based on all the information available, they'll take a decision on whether that change is a valid request or an invalid request. If it's invalid, you close the ticket with a comment. You say that we're not going to do this because it's been agreed. It's not a valid point. And if it is approved, you actually take it up and plan it in your future development, your roadmap. You add it to your roadmap, and you then let's move to things you will consider as part of your change control process. Whenever a request comes, there are four items that will definitely get impacted no matter what. Cost and time, they will be changed. So let's say you were already working on five requirements, everything was planned, you had certain resources allocated, you had certain budget allocated, and you said by this date we will deliver these five requirements. Suddenly, one more new requirement comes. Now you have six requirements. And let's say that is the most important one that has to be done first. It will impact your cost, it will impact your timelines, all your planning gets impacted because of this added requirement. There's nothing wrong in it. In fact, when that happens, you have to take it as part of the process and you incorporate it with your mm, you basically redo your planning and you come up with a new plan with that new item in. You'll also have to take a look at benefits. If someone is suggesting a change, is there a real value in implementing that change? What are the benefits? If there are no benefits or if the benefits are minimal, why would you want to change all your planning and budgets and resources and deadlines for something which doesn't add any significant value? So, benefit you have to consider every time a change request comes in. Risks, of course, if you are changing something midway, you probably don't have enough time to let me not use that statement. You have to get that time somehow, and you have to basically analyze everything there is with respect to uh, the impact. So, impact analysis, you have to make some time and figure out how it will be impacting anything in the current system. But along with it, you also have to do a risk analysis because there will be uncertainty. You're bringing in a new thing which might lead to certain things which you probably didn't anticipate. So, the negative effects of uncertainty are risks, and you have to do a risk analysis as well along with your impact analysis. One simple risk can be I will not meet the deadlines. Let's say the business had a very hard deadline, production release should happen by so and so date, and by so and so date the product should be available to end users, but now they introduce three new things. So you have to say that look, we are going to do these three new things, but there is definitely a risk that we will not be able to meet our initial deadline of end of the year or whatever the deadline was. That's fine, because if you are transparent and you make it out clear right at the onset, they also understand. Because if someone is introducing new changes, they do understand it takes time to implement those new changes, and they will come up with a new deadline now. Priority, this is something we'll discuss in a short while. uh, so priority is basically which item do we pick up first. So let's say I'm doing working on 15 items, 4 or 5 new items have come up. Which ones are more important? And if I'm taking these new five items into my iteration, I only have a capacity to do five things at one point. So I have to remove five things from existing iteration as well. So there has to be a very detailed analysis of which requirement adds the most value. Based on that, prioritization will happen. We will look at some prioritization techniques in a short while. The way prioritization happens in most software companies. And finally, you have to come up with a course of action. What is your course of action? Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to implement the change? That plan has to be very clear and detailed out in. Let me put it this way: you have a set of 100 requirements. How do you and your team is capable of delivering only five items per iteration, and let's say your iteration is of 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks you can deliver five items. Which five items do you take in iteration one? Which five items do you pick for iteration two, three, four, and so on and so forth? How do you decide that slicing of requirements in such a way that you put them into buckets of your iterations? So there are many techniques, but we will focus on the two most commonly used techniques uh, that 99% of the times are used across the world for prioritization. So the first technique is, let's say you have a very collaborative team, meaning your development team, your business stakeholders, everybody meets almost regularly. Let's say every day they meet for some time, and you have everything in a very structured and ordered way, and there is a lot of trust, and well, let me not go into trust and those things, but the point is there is a lot of interaction between the implementation and the development business side. Both of them know each other very well, and they interact quite often. If that is a scenario, there is one way to do prioritization where both of you take inputs from both of these teams, the business stakeholders and the implementation stakeholders. You take both of their views and you filter out certain requirements in a certain way. So what is that technique? So let's go into the technique and look at this particular image. So you have two axes, x axis and y axis. In this particular diagram, the y axis represents impact, x axis represents effort. You can have multiple, you can have anything else as well in these x and y axis. For example, if for your project money is a more important factor than impact, then you will make your y axis as cost. If time is an important factor, you can put time. Long time projects or things that will take higher time will be put up, as certain items. You can actually change the values of these axes with any parameter that is most important for your project. For now we are looking at impact versus effort, but depending from project to project it might vary, and you can have any such value like cost, time, risk. uh, all of these things can be used in x or y axis. So how does this work? So in order to do this kind of prioritization, it is absolutely necessary for you to do two things. One, you should have the complete set of requirements already assembled in one place. If you don't have all the requirements assembled in one place, this uh, prioritization technique, you will not be able to utilize it to its full. So you will only be able to do it on a partial level, and it will not be that helpful. So you need to have, I'm not saying 100%, but maximum, let's say 80% of all your requirements are already in place. Only 20% you will figure out later. You are good to go with this particular prioritization. So let's say I have these 100 requirements. I'll put each of these requirements on a post-it, and I'll put that on a wall. I'll now call the development team stakeholders, and I'll pick up post-it number one. I'll say that, look, you guys tell me what is the efforts in getting this requirement implemented. They will either say it's something you can do easily, or it's something that is very complex. There can only be two answers. They are binary questions. So you let me open a better one. Yeah, this is a better diagram. I don't like the color schema of this one. Okay. So the development team says, look, this is a low effort. We can easily deliver it. Now you ask the business stakeholders from their point of view, what is the value of that particular requirement? If we deliver that requirement, does it add high value, or does it add low, or is it like low to medium value? Based on these two answers, now you have two parameters, two axes. Based on the answers you get, you will post it in one of these quadrants. Either it will be high value, low effort, or high value but high effort, or high effort but low value, or low value low effort. It will have to fit in one of these four categories. Once you do that filtering, you get some items in this box, some items in this, some in this, some in this. Anything that is low priority, anything that is of low value but high efforts, will you even think of doing that ever? It adds minimum value but takes a lot of cost, lot of effort to get that done. Will you even think of delivering that at any given point of time? Probably not, because for you that is like a waste of time. It's a time sink. You invest time on doing that, you will be wasting a lot of time with very minimal real value. So anything that falls under the first box, you will probably never pick up. They are as good as discarded. You don't discard them right away, you put them as time sinks. You capture the requirements, saying that, look, we have done our job, we captured all the requirements, but during our discussions we found that these items don't really add value and they're too complex to implement. Hence we are just putting it in the box where we will not touch it for a long time, unless some drastic change happens and some of those requirements become valuable, more valuable. You will never do, you will never implement those in the first place. Anything that is low value but low effort is a filler. It's a fill in, meaning when you have completed everything else that is important and now you have nothing to work on, your team is sitting idle. Instead of making them sit idly, you will ask them to pick some items from this box. Because one, it doesn't take too much time, it will keep people engaged, and because it doesn't add any high value, high or medium value, it's very low value in terms of its uh, value. You will basically leave it for the future, like as a fill in. When everything else is done, nothing is left, is there is nothing left to do, you will pick items from this box. So that leaves us with two boxes, and these are the two boxes you will spend most of your time working on. What are those two boxes? High value, low effort. That's a quick win. You know it won't take too much time, effort, complexity. It's straightforward. You can achieve it. Your team is confident. And it will definitely add very high value. So they are quick wins. You have to pick items from that bucket for sure. Then there are items which are going to add high value. So you have to take them at some point, but they are going to take time. You can't take all of them in one go and say that we'll finish it, immediately. You can't finish them immediately. They are going to be time taking, long, high effort works. So what will you do? You will probably take a balanced approach, pick some items from the quick wins, and pick one or two big project. Why is this strategy used? If you pick a couple of one or two quick wins and you deliver them, the business is happy because they are getting something that is delivering high value. And parallelly you inform the business that, look, we are also starting work on this project, and this one is going to take a lot of extra time. It requires time because it's a very complex implementation, but you are starting it as soon as possible. If you start it today, the end date would also be predictable, and at some point you will finish it. If you keep it parked, you'll probably never get to it. So you have to make a balanced choice. Pick some quick wins with high value, low effort, and pick one or two big projects which you know for a fact will take a lot of time, but will add a lot of value as well. And you pick some items, especially analysis or those kind of activities, you can pick immediately. Now look at the second prioritization technique. Have you guys heard of this? Again, couple of things. Now, these two techniques that we have looked at, you don't always have to create a chart like this. Not necessary. If you have a limited set of requirements and you want to use this method or the Moscow method, you can simply capture them in an Excel sheet or a Word file. Just add a or create a table with four columns, each having these headings. This kind of representation is very helpful when you are doing these kind of activities in person. Let's say you're conducting a workshop for requirements, and at the end of the requirements gathered, so you have gathered 100 requirements during the workshop, you want to prioritize them as well. There you will put this up, you'll take a printout of this, or you'll draw it out on a board, or create a large chart paper with the same, because it makes presentation that much better. And the activity itself becomes a collaborative activity where people are talking, they are coming to the board, they are putting post-its on. But if you are working in an online environment, you have a limited set of requirements. You can do this using Microsoft Word, Excel, or even emails. You can just send out an email saying that, look, we made these four categories based on your understanding. Development team, you give me the high priorities. You just put your values, which one is high, which one is low. And business, you tell me from a value point of view which is high and which is low. And then you create an Excel sheet or a report and you send it out to everyone. So the representation is not important. The concept of how you are doing the prioritization is what really matters. Coming back to Moscow, so it's just one of those acronyms which is used to remember things easily. I think there's a term for it. I don't remember what that term is, but it's like if I ask you what are the seven colors of rainbow, I'm sure most of you here would have heard VIBGYRE. It's by it's an acronym, right? VIBGYRE, and you can actually remember all the seven colors using the acronym. Uh, Similarly, Moscow is the acronym by which you can remember what it really stands for. So M in Moscow, or MO in Moscow, stands for most essential or most important tasks, things that are a must have, meaning if you don't have those functionalities, your system is useless. For example, if I am building a food delivery application, I need to have an ability to log in into the application. I need to have an inventory of restaurants and their respective menus. I need to have a payment mechanism, and I need to have a delivery mechanism. If these four, five things are not there in the app, it's not a food delivery application. So they have to be there for the application to be able to be used. Said that, the next category, starting with S, stands for important tasks that have to be done at some point. But even if they are not there on day one, your system will still continue working. They are not essential to the product, but they are definitely very important. Let me give you the same example. Payments. Let's say the same food delivery app that you are building. On day one, you say to the business that, look, guys, I'll give you an application which has a payment option, but at least for the first 1 month or 2 months, it will only have cash on delivery. And then slowly, we will add credit cards, debit cards, the UPI scans, whatnot. Is the system workable? Is the system something that you can release and get some value out of it, as of it based on the current set of features? The answer is yes. Yes, the current set of features are not perfect. They are not refined. Maybe there is more to be done. Maybe the competitors are offering things that you currently don't have. But it's a good start to have. Then you have could have or CO or could have or nice to have features. So what is this? So here you basically focus on things that even if they're not there, it doesn't add too much value. But if you do it, then it'll be nice to, it'll maybe make something colorful, add a small scroll bar somewhere, add a logo here, add a background there, all of those kind of changes, minor changes, things that don't have any significant value add, but are going to make the user experience or quality of life better if you implement them. And W stands for won't have or things that you will never do. So these are the tasks that don't provide any value, and you will not waste your time doing these tasks because they don't provide any. One important point, so the difference between this technique and the other technique that we just saw, there you need a collaboration between your development team, implementation team, and your business stakeholders. You will take both of their inputs to come up with prioritization using the other technique. But with Moscow, you don't need the implementation team. Unless it's a very technical set of requirements. For non-functional requirements, of course, it will be the development team, but there you will not need the business team. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is this technique you can use with one party alone. You don't need a collaboration between multiple stakeholders. You can sit with the business, prioritize all functional requirements just with them. You can sit with the implementation team, prioritize all technical tasks with them, combine the two, you have a roadmap ready. This technique is more common compared to others because for others you need to have that you have to build that rapport. You need to ensure that there is yeah. So Moscow technique is the one that is most commonly used across the board because it doesn't have that dependency of bringing two groups or three groups together. But you will find both of these techniques to be very valuable. It helps you in filtering out a lot of requirements which don't add any value. So the things that would come under the won't have bucket, you will not touch them. It's a good way of filtering out unwanted work. And what remains is the ones that are really adding value or are very important for the. Now you have done your prioritization. You used one of these techniques. Somehow you made sure that all the requirements are now prioritized. That's not the end. Now you have to first go and document them, because any prioritization that you do needs to be documented largely to an extent of it has to be formal documentation. Even Confluence, you can create formal documentation. I'll show you how Confluence and Jira documentation works. I'll also show you the traditional modes of documentation, the BRDs, FRDs, SRDs, SRS, etc. So we'll look at those documentation types later in one of our later sessions. But for now, let's just remember that all these changes that are coming in after prioritization, you will have to document them very clearly. Communication, that's the next step. Make sure you communicate these changes, and everybody who is a stakeholder needs to know that changes are happening. Send out emails, put it up in a page where everybody can access it. How you do it would be left up to the tools and mechanisms available in your particular project and organization. But communication has to happen if certain changes have been adopted. Now, in this particular set of slides, impact analysis is given at the very end. But if you ask me, in my experience, you have to do impact analysis before the actual acceptance or rejection of the change happens. But organizational practices might vary slightly. The sooner you do your impact analysis, the better, because you will have more information to decide, to base your decisions on. So make sure that you do impact analysis beforehand as soon as possible. Few things to remember though is who is going to perform the analysis. You need to figure that out. As I mentioned, some of the changes can just have functional impact. Then it will be the BA who will do the analysis. Some of the changes can also have a technical impact. Both BA and dev lead or technology, your implementation team have to work together to do the analysis. Or changes are purely technical in nature, no functionality change, then it will be an analysis done by the development team. So bottom line, you have to decide who is going to do impact analysis for that particular change. So for every change, I mean, again, when I say every change, I'm talking about changes that are significant in nature. If I'm just adding a button or I'm just adding a image or a logo, I would probably not need an impact analysis, right? On the UI, I'm changing the position of the logo from left to right. Will I do an impact analysis? Absolutely not. It doesn't make sense because all I'm doing is changing the image from left to right. So again, it depends on case to case. If I'm implementing something which I have an inkling that it is going to have impact, I'll definitely do impact. Okay. So prioritization, we already talked about all these prioritization activities you will use. So some of the parameters, remember that cost versus, effort versus value that we saw. You can replace that X and Y value with either cost, risk, value, anything that is relevant in your project can become the X and Y axis. But some of the other parameters are cost, risk, and okay. So once your requirements are finalized, prioritization is done, you present them for approvals to your stakeholders. So as I said, someone from the business side always usually be is usually the one who has the authority to approve or reject, right? So you'll probably send these, or you will present your case that look, these new requirements are coming in, these things do so and so things, it will add so much so value. Would you also agree that these three changes are important and we should take them up now? Or if not, we will put them in the backlog and we will do the we'll work on these requirements when all our current requirements are complete. They will basically look at the impact analysis, all of the discussions that have happened, and take a decision of whether to approve the change or not approve the change. Guidelines are too straightforward. Business analysis, performance assessment, policies, current state description, regulatory information. These all are guided. You'll be bounded by these guidelines anyways. So you have to make sure that you keep an eye out for all of these specific guidelines. Set of techniques. These are the ones that you can use to perform this governance analysis planning, and we'll talk about them in our technique session. These are the primary stakeholders, but I would say any stakeholder who